So, on one, guess what? I didn't put my glasses in my other pocket. So, oh well. There's a very interesting idea. Change, one of the most things we resist the most is change. And in the meditation, I was sharing with you, for things to get better, things have to change. Anybody agree with that? It's like, I don't want change, I don't like change. Madeline and I have been out looking for houses we've been looking for 3 or 4 months now. And one house that we wanted, we were very excited about, didn't come through. Anybody familiar with things not happening? And we're back looking again, and all the fears are there. You know, it's kind of like, what are we going to do? I hate to move, okay? And we got to pack, and we got to do all that stuff. And is this the right house, or is that the right house, or does it have everything we want, or are people going to be happy with it, or, you know, there's all these doubts and fears. But yet, what must we do? We must move, because the lease is up. Now, that's outside events impinging on us. And if you stop and think about it, the only way things improve is if we change. Is it possible to move into something that's absolutely perfect? Yes. And so the idea behind it is patterns. We develop patterns in life. I don't know about you, but I brush my teeth with my right hand. Have you ever tried to change and brush your teeth with your other hand?
No.
It's a complete, what we call pattern interrupt. And sometimes the only way to change things is to force the change. And unfortunately, the universe is giving us signals to change. And if we don't change, then the universe changes for us. Anybody been there?
Yes.
It's kind of like surprises. Oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. Well, I've been ignoring the little small voice for the last year, and all of a sudden the universe said, okay, Robert, bang, here it is. Okay, and then we get upset because we didn't listen in the first place. And I don't know whether that's you or not, but it's me. So if you take a look at the whole thing, you really, really have to understand God is in everything. Thank you, Bruce. I didn't know you were going to pick that. Okay? Let me tell you how coincidence occurs. I do not look at the Daily Word ahead of time, most of the time. Occasionally I will. But I definitely didn't do it this week. And Madeline and I have been addressing changes. We've had a lot of things come in the door. We've had some family issues. We've had this, we've had that. And I didn't like them. And guess what? I've been forced to look at things honestly and say, okay, the fact is, here's what's happening. Okay, so I had to address the fact and then look at what are we going to do to get it where I want it to be. And then the Daily Word comes out with change. Okay? And she brought it into me this morning. She said, look at this. Okay. And so, you know, there's a coincidence in everything in life, and God is in everything. So it says, I rely on the guidance of Spirit to lead me through necessary changes. See, we're back to it again. If I want things to improve in my life, things must change. Okay? And I'm not going to ask you to agree with me or disagree with me, but anybody have what I call toxic relationships? It's known as family. Now, not everybody's family, but the idea behind it is that if I want something to get better, it has to change. Okay? And if I want to get better, I have to change. So when I'm asking for things to get better, I'd better get ready for some sort of change, because God answers requests. Okay? So if I'm asking for somebody to straighten out, and they're not going to straighten out, what has to happen? I have to straighten out. And when I straighten out, maybe it'll magically straighten out. Everybody have people suddenly disappear from your life? Okay, because I know that it wasn't, let's say, what I call balanced relationship, a giving and receiving. So all these things in our life we make wrong, but they aren't wrong. It's just the outer working of Spirit giving us what we want, okay? Now, we all have to go through lessons. I hate to say that, I really do, because it's really not the natural path. The natural path is one of joy, peace, happiness, wealth, health, and all the good things in life, because that's who we are. But we've allowed the outside world to program us into a state of being where we have to struggle, etc. So over here, the natural self is everything's cool. This week we, Course of Love class that we had on Wednesday, we were looking at an idea that I'll share with you, and it dovetails. That's why so many good things come into my life this week, and some of them weren't fun, but they were good for me. Okay, do you hear that? Good for me. So it says here, since your personal self was always meant to represent the truth of who you are. So deep down in you, your personal self is always there to do what needs to be done. Then it goes on, the seeds of who you are planted there, right within the self you've always been. So, see, a lot of people say, well, I wish I could get better. You are who you are, you're the Christ self. So it's really just awakening to who you are, not transitioning. It's just awakening, okay? Then it goes on and says, there has always been within you, however, a creative tension between accepting who you are and becoming who you want to be. Anybody familiar with the idea of want to be? Gee, I wish, or what if, or we do all those kind of conversations. And we compare. Everybody got it? In other words, I'm not as good at singing as Bruce is, so I'm deficient. And I'm using that as an example. So we're always looking outside of us at other people and deciding, well, I'm not good enough, or this. We're based upon what we see in others rather than who we are. And who are we? The Christ self, period. Then it goes on and says this. Between accepting who you are and becoming who you want to be. This tension will continue if you are unable to integrate two ideas of this course, learning into your new reality. And here's the new reality. You ready? There's only two things. Number one is the often repeated injunction to resign as your own teacher and what we call manager of the universe. You got to get this. We don't control things. Everybody there? No. But yet we spend hours planning. I had a very good career for quite a while teaching people how to plan. Goal setting, strategic planning. I used to go into corporations and tell them how to plan. Isn't that exciting? Why the heck they ever listen to me, I'll never know. Because it's just a list of things. And everybody within us, you are a higher self. You know. Inside of you, you have the Christ. So, first thing we need to do is resign as our own teacher. Everybody there? Then it says the next thing, the other is the ability to cease all acts of comparison. See, there's nobody like you. Nobody. An example I use, we don't have any children in the room, so we can do this. But the example I use is, you are the outcome of 1 million to 3 million entities swimming as fast as they could, and you're the best one that got there first. Do you understand what I'm saying? For those of you who don't, somebody turn around and explain it to them. Okay? Stop and think about that. Did I offend you, Randy? But stop and think about that. Really, who are you? Now that's on the physical level. On the spiritual level, you're the Christ. You are a model. Jesus was a model for you. And according to all that I understand, we have that, and Jesus said, these things I do, ye shall do, and even greater things. That's why I tell people I believe in Jesus, but I also believe what he said. So that's who you are. And how come we don't know it? Because we're busy looking at everybody else. And we're busy trying to run things ourselves rather than letting go. Okay? So now there's more. Okay? Along with this resignation is the concept of receiving rather than planning. This is a big one. Because honestly, planning has been a big issue. And I live in a household where somebody plans all the time. And the whole idea behind it is we're planning, we're taking control. And what this is saying is, when it's time, we will receive what we need to do. So rather than planning, we might be an interesting idea to think about receiving information when it's needed. There's also, and I'm quoting from memory, there's also the idea in here of that vision is with the eyes closed. What that means is visualizing in the physical world, I see illusion. And that's for another day, but I see illusion. When I close my ideas, I can make up a perfect world. That's why we see the church down the road. And the more we see the church down the road, the more that comes into actual physical manifestation from the ethers. So if I'm seeing illusion, it's because I worry about it. So closing my eyes, I can conjure up an idea. A lot of times in counseling, it's like we were counseling with somebody this week that couldn't get past worry. Anybody familiar with the idea of anxiety? There's more anxiety and depression out there right now than there has been for years. And depression generally is triggered by a difference between what I expect and what reality is. In other words, if I expect something that's not happening, I go into depression. So if I'm a child of God, what do I expect? Nothing but child of God. So it's that ability to receive directly rather than compare myself to somebody else. Because anxiety comes because I'm comparing myself to somebody else or what should be. Anybody familiar with the term should be? Okay, so that idea is what takes us into that downward spiral. Now, I like the idea of practical Christianity. That's what Charles Fillmore called it. In other words, what can I take from my spiritual religious functioning to apply to my life to make a difference in the outcomes in my life? And a lot of people have theories in life. Anybody familiar with theories? And yet, what are the outcomes? Do they really work? Do they help somebody live a more satisfying life? Et cetera, et cetera. And we're talking about basic psychological factors in a spiritual way, is what we're looking at. Okay? Now, here it is. The active observation that you're able to do with your eyes closed is the observation of what is. In other words, when we look at things, that's not what's true. What's true is when we close our eyes and see from the inside out. Okay? Now, there's more to this. Change is uncomfortable. Agree? It really is. But yet, we all have a reaction to change. And generally, the first reaction is fear, doubt, uncomfortable. Here's an interesting statistic. We have approximately 50,000 thoughts per day. Bunch of thoughts. They have determined that 95% of those thoughts are the same. In other words, we just keep going in a cycle with the same thoughts day after day after day after day. So, the idea of, and I'm going to bring a term in called pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt is doing something that is not your pattern to create a change. Okay, if you know, it's funny. We bring pattern interrupt quite a bit because it's part of the training we've had in the past. But the idea is if you do the same thing every day, day after day after day, you get into a rut. Anybody familiar with a rut? I heard somebody say one time that a rut is a grave with the ends kicked out. Because you're stuck in doing the same thing you've always done. Why? Because it's comfortable. And if I change it, it's uncomfortable. But if I'm going to move forward to a higher level of being, must I change it? Yes. Well, it's comfortable. Sure, it's comfortable. Because I have gotten into that rut of day-to-day life. Okay? So very, very interesting. So pattern interrupt is doing something that's different. That's why I asked you if you brush your teeth with the left hand. Okay? Do you even know what you do? What hand do you use when you open the door? Okay? When you knock on the door, which hand do you use? There's all these things that we do unconsciously every day. And so when you get into some of the advanced training, they will actually have you start reversing things that you do. It's like taking a watch. Does anybody know if you have a watch in your left hand, you've probably worn it there all your life. Change it to the next hand and see how you get interrupted. Okay? Just do it. Do something different that changes the patterns in your brain, and you'll start realizing how much we're all creatures of habit. And that's okay if the habits are taking you where you want to go. But we're talking about interrupting a pattern to become who we are really meant to be. Okay? Now, what looks like disruption may be a divine pattern interrupt. See, when we ask for something to change, And it changes. It's, oh my God, I don't know whether I can handle this or not. Hey, I've had a lot of people say, I'm overwhelmed. I can't do anymore. Okay, and I've had people say, well, I'm bored. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. And all of a sudden activity occurs, and all of a sudden they're so busy they can't keep up with things. So these are all divine interventions, and maybe they are divine interruptions or pattern interrupts. Because when we say, I want this, then I have to let go of this in my life that's been keeping me from this. Okay? Everybody take a deep breath. There's a new pattern interrupt for you. Okay? Once in a while, just stop and take a deep breath. Yes. Course in Miracles. I've been in a Course of Love and a Course in Miracles this week. And I'm going to close on a Bible verse. But right now, we're going to go to a Course in Miracles. And Saturday morning, we had lesson 41. This was yesterday. Okay? And the idea in this lesson 41 is God goes with me wherever I go. So please understand, every cell of your body is part of God. So when you walk, you are walking with God's presence. And it goes on and says here, deep within you is everything that is perfect, ready to radiate through you and out from into the world. So you are a radiating center of God love into the rest of the world. And each one of us has that special gift. When Val prayed for praying, she talked about each one of us has a gift. And we're here to learn how to express that gift. And your gift, you know, there are a lot of people that reach the point in life where they're prayer warriors. What they do is spend hours in prayer every day. Other people go out and drive cars for us. They do blockchains. You know, whatever it is they do, they are doing that for the general public. Now, I'm looking at trading a skill for money, but if you really stop and think about that, Brother Lawrence, years ago, everything I do is honoring God. So when he washed his bowl, he was honoring God. So who are we? We're children of God, and every time we share our skills, we're honoring God. That's why we're here. So I'm going to keep going. It says, deep within, we'll do it again, deep within you is everything that is perfect, ready to radiate through you and out into the world. It will cure all sorrow and pain and fear and loss, because it will heal the mind that thought these things were real. And then here's the key to it. You ready? And suffered out of its allegiance to them. So we have an allegiance to our native behavior because it feels good. I'm used to it. Now, I apologize for going so deep this morning, but this is what I've been dealing with all week, so you got to deal with me too. Okay, so it's welcome aboard. But we get so stuck in this stuff, and we keep saying, well, I don't like that, but that might be the very thing that's going to set us free. It's like, trying to think of an example that I can share with you. Anyway, it's like looking for a house. Am I looking at the right house? Well, if I like this one and I choose it, are other people going? It doesn't matter what you think. Do you get it? What matters is, does it fit the need for our residents, for our activity center, and for our offices, which is what we need? And is it closer to the church? A lot of people complain about going all the way out there. So, you know, all those things have to fit together, but who has to make the decision? So the idea is to make decisions, move forward when we know it's right. And the only way we know it's right, number one, is it's a change, because I have to leave stuff behind. How many times have I said that? I'm aware we hang on to what is because we're afraid to let go of what is. And if we're going to get that, then we have to let go of what is. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. This is yes, this is no. Okay? Now, please turn to your bulletins. And in the back of your bulletins, the last insert is the resignation of the universe. Last page in the... Okay? I guess I better look it up. Okay. Now, I'm going to read it, and I want you to read along with me. Excuse me, Bruce. Okay. Everybody got it? By the way, if anybody's in video land, you can email us and ask for it. We'll send it to you. So this is general manager of the universe. See, when we're running things and we try to plan and control things, are we taking the role of general manager of our universe? Yes or no? Yes, we are. We're saying, I know, and I'm going to figure this out, and it's all my problem. Anybody familiar with my problems? Oh, you need to understand my problems. Okay? So it says, once we establish the limits and boundaries of our responsibility. So, what are the limits and boundaries of our responsibility? Good question, right? So, I'm a child of God, complete and whole just as I am, is the promise. So, there are no worries. Okay? Darn it. So, we can take full charge of that which is our duty and let go of that which is not. So, what is our duty?
To know that we're the child of God.
Yeah, child of God, period. So what I'm here to do is honor who I am, which is child of God. So I'm here to praise and give thanks and love. Now I know that's kind of difficult for some of us, but that's what we're here for. We're not here to struggle. We're not here to figure out how to, build the next whatever. We're here to honor God, and then God is here to take care of us. So it goes on and says, in doing so, we find more enjoyment in supporting others as we create more harmonious cooperative relationships. So part of our job is to get into relationship. And this church environment is relationship. And it's also hanging out with people that think the same way. Because we are radiating beings of God's love. So we need to be around others that are radiating God's love. So we can find more enjoyment in supporting others as we create more harmonious cooperative relationships. How do you feel when somebody encourages you, pats you on the back and says, go boy, get it, you can do it, girl. That's a key. That's what most of us are looking for, is appreciation, somebody acknowledging me, somebody talking to me, somebody loving me. So if we're looking for that, who else is looking for that? So innate with us is the desire to connect and to be one with each other. So as long as we're doing that, are we fulfilling our role? I believe so. Then it says, for peace of mind, we need to resign as general manager of the universe. Hello? Now, there's a sign down here, willingness, commitment, signature. Please take it home, and if you choose to participate, sign it. And put it on your mirror, okay? Everybody take a deep breath. Am I requesting change? Yes. Did you feel the shift in the energy in the room? It did, so I hope you did. Okay? There is no fear. So we've got that. Now, the next, go take a look at the next one forward is the Ho'oponopono. And most of you are familiar with this. If you're not, you can pick up the book from Joe Vitale, which is Zero Limits, okay? And Joe found that these 4 phrases make a difference in life. So anytime I have an issue I don't like, I'm not comfortable with, I just say these 4 things over and over again out loud. Are you ready? So I say, I love you. And you're saying I love you to the divinity within you. So I love you, divinity. I love you, God. I love you, source. I love you, whatever name you choose. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that whatever has occurred at this point, I didn't know. Because somehow there was a belief put in my brain by somebody when I was a child, or was handed down through hereditary means, and I didn't know it was there, and it's manifested. So I'm sorry it occurred. I didn't know it. Please forgive me, and I'll add, get rid of the belief in my subconscious mind, okay? So you're automatically saying that when you say, please forgive me, thank you. Now, I will tell you that I have seen relationships shift. I have seen people literally almost overnight heal. I have seen all kinds of things happen. I know there's some of you in the room that have used this to do it. And this is what, the 3rd or 4th time I've passed it out. So please take it. And I encourage you to resign as general manager of the universe and start using that as letting go.
It makes life a lot more fun.
Because I have a place to go. I have a thing to do automatically when I go. It's a new habit. It's establishing a habit. And how long does it take to establish a new habit? At least 3 weeks, 21 days. And I would say multiply it by 3 or 4, maybe even 10. Yeah. Okay. Now, there's so much more. I'd like to read this whole book to you, but we can't do that this morning. Okay? What I'm asking us to do is look at this idea of pattern interrupt. And again, this is practical Christianity. This is stopping things before they reach the materialization point. And it's a pattern interrupt. I have a problem with comfort food. Anybody familiar with that? It's been interesting for me because sugar was an issue, but it's left that. Guess what bothers me now? Carbohydrates. I want bread, I want white potatoes, and it's a pattern interrupt to not do that from the old self. So we look, and I'm just sharing with you an idea, and I'm asking you to take a look at our lives together, and what can I put a pattern interrupt in? Okay. Another area is toxic relationships. I've had toxic relationships, and a toxic relationship is a relationship that doesn't support you, or it doesn't enhance you, if I can use that terminology. Again, having gone through, might as well address it, drinking days, alcoholic days, I found that I couldn't go back and deal with the guys I used to hang out with. Okay? Couldn't do that. Couldn't walk into a bar. Couldn't walk into those places because I got into that thinking automatically. So what did I have to do? I had to stop those relationships. Now, were they upset? Yeah. Because I had changed and I chose to cut that off, pattern interrupt. Something else, physical habits. It's like exercise. Anybody familiar with that? Okay, and pattern interrupt is, now I've gotten to the point now where I do a certain amount of walking and I use a jumper. Anybody familiar with trampoline stuff? And that keeps me healthy. I'm in good shape for that. But also I have to watch what I eat, what I take care of. Also take care of self. Go to the doctor, eat properly, all those kind of things. And see, I'm bringing it down into the practical area of what do you want? Like if I say I want to be healthy, then what do I have to do? I have to change the habits that created my unhealthy state. Okay, and I can't ignore that. I have to accept it. Okay. Then there's another one here: jobs that demean. Anybody ever been in a job that actually demeaned you? Okay. And we get stuck there. I got stuck there for years because I had family to take care of. And I couldn't change jobs because I was afraid that my family would not make it. Okay? Now, is that true? Yeah, in the physical world. But I didn't let go and allow Spirit to find something else for me. Okay? On. Family. It's really fascinating. Those of you in the counseling business and in businesses that support social work know that some of the biggest downfall is family because they influence us as heavily as others do. And I won't get into any stories on that, but we all have those issues. So, do we fortify ourselves? Anybody familiar with Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner? With Aunt Susie or whoever it is. Okay? And do I need to go there? And I'm not saying give up family, I'm saying be aware of how it affects us. And these are all things that are sneak in the back door. Okay? Let me go on. Beliefs. Anyway, disconnect, change. And the idea someday I will fill in the blank. I've had more some days I will. There's an idea called, trying to remember, incompletions. When we make promises to ourselves and don't fulfill them, then our subconscious starts saying you're lying to yourself anyway. It's an automatic process. So it's being honored to yourself. In other words, if I decide I'm going to do something, then the intention is for that to occur. And if I procrastinate or don't do it or ignore it, which I'm a great procrastinator, she'll tell you. Okay? And I look at myself, what am I attempting, what am I building, what am I creating by that behavior? And it's a pattern interrupt that when I do, if you notice lately, I don't say I'll do anything. In other words, safest thing is not to agree to do anything, which isn't the best thing in the world. But it's a pattern interrupt to have you take a look at the possibility of what I'm doing. Okay? So there's all these pattern things in our life. Now, I'm coming to an end. Tommy worries about how long I am, so I have to be careful. Okay? And I'm going to read a Bible verse. The Bible's full of renewing, new ideas. Okay, and I have to look at what's going on in the world. Right now, we've got more stuff going out there. If you haven't heard about it yet, and I'm just bringing a fact to you, there was a plane crash in Russia. Okay, so all those lives, as far as we know, are gone. What was the reason for that? Now, could I get involved in that and worry about that? Yes. Could I worry about what's happening in Pflugerville? Sure, I could. But I cannot change those things. The only thing I can change is what? Me. So it's my job to enhance me as much as I can in spirit. How do you go? Not the physical, in the spiritual self. And Paul addresses this very much. 2 Corinthians, okay, 5:17. Therefore, if any person be in Christ, that means become aware that you're a child of God. Okay? They are a new creation. Okay? Now, I'm going to divert a little bit, and I haven't done enough study on this, but I'm going to share this with you. I've shared it with a couple of you. Friday, I was introduced to a new idea. And that new idea is the DNA. We know Bruce Lipton has brought in the idea that epigenetics, which is now big time in the biology field. And epigenetics says we can change our DNA. Everybody there? For hundreds of years, you couldn't change or years or whatever, you couldn't change your DNA, you're stuck with DNA. Now they know you can change your DNA. Everybody there? And your DNA changes under high trauma and under high bliss. Problem is our world is full of trauma. So our ancestors have been traumatized. I went back in my line. My grandfather was a miner in the mines in Illinois. Horrible stuff. 12-hour days, 6 and 7 days a week. And a lot of us have those type of backgrounds. And what I was introduced to Friday, and I have to find the book. I don't have the book. I'm doing a seminar on Tuesday. Is a lady came up with a study from Emory University in Atlanta. And so you can Google this if you choose to. It's called the Cherry Blossom Study. Cherry blossom scent is very unique. In other words, it can't be misunderstood by almost any other entity. So they took rats and introduced cherry blossom scent to the rats. Everybody there? And then when they were introducing the cherry blossom scent, they scared the rats. In other words, they created trauma for the rats. So they embedded trauma into the DNA of the rats. We know that that occurs. Everybody there? Mm-hmm. Then they backed off and let the rats go through 3 and 4 generations. You got me? So now they studied rats that were 3 and 4 generations later, and they then introduced the scent of cherry blossoms to the 3rd and 4th generation. And the 3rd and 4th generation reacted to the scent. Hello. Do you understand what I'm saying? It means that we're a product of all the DNA that has come down from our ancestors. Now, that's some of the newest research. I'm just sharing brand new information with you. And I haven't had the time to really do the investigation. You're smiling.
Well, it's also, there's a biblical verse where it says, the iniquities of the fathers will go to the sons of their generation.
6th and 7th. Yeah, and see, it never made sense to me, but all of a sudden, bingo, there it is.
That's why I smile.
Because now science is proving a biblical truth, okay? But yet, it's not all over the news yet. I don't know why. Because it might mean we're responsible for straightening out our lineage. Now, those of you that are into, what do you call it? Genealogy. Okay? It's a big deal all of a sudden. Okay? Now, everybody take a deep breath, because it means we have a lot of work to do. Everybody there? So, and I've spent years wondering why things don't happen faster. I got involved in these ideas in 1978. You've heard this before, that Madeline and I attended a seminar by Catherine Ponder. And I got all excited about the new thought idea of prosperity. And I started doing affirmations, waiting for all the $1,000 bills to come floating out of the air. Okay? It hasn't happened. But yet, life has changed. Our relationship has gotten better. We're here. Never would have been here if we weren't in that seminar in 1978. The job I was in, I was general manager of a big organization. I think it was $30 or $40 million. And 6 months later, I was terminated. Okay, so all this stuff changed. But yet, I go back and look at it. Would I be here today if I hadn't lost that job in Montgomery, Alabama 30 years ago? No. So was there a benefit? I believe yes. So as these changes occurred, it's also taking us forward in life, and the appreciation that I have for those things is just the thought that everything is God, or God is in everything, if I can use that terminology. So I'm going to go back and do this verse and complete it. Therefore, if any man is in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things have passed away. Folks, please take a deep breath and understand we've got to leave the old stuff behind. Everybody get it? Shall I say it again? Take a deep breath. We've got to leave the old stuff behind. Okay, now not your spouses. She doesn't appreciate my humor. But you take a look at it. We make a new step. We make new steps. And to make a new step, we have to leave the old stuff behind, whatever that is. Okay? You folks just got married, yes? And have you left other things behind? Yeah. You even moved, okay? And sometimes moving creates a new environment, completely new environment, okay? So there's always a positive everything. Then it goes on and says, and old things are passed away, behold, all things are become new. So I guess there isn't too much more to say. The idea is a pattern interrupt. Again, where are we going? What are we doing? What do we want to create? What kind of lifestyle do we want? What kind of relationships do we want? What type of life do we want to live? And ultimately, we do have a certain amount of control over that. However, the control is in God's hands, not ours. So it's letting go and letting God in its correct sense. But it also means leaving everything behind me and moving forward. Paul also says, I move forward in Christ and leave the old behind me. So, we had to move out of where we were in North Austin, yes, and leave that place behind in order to move into a new territory and build a church here. And by the way, February it's a year, by the way. So we've been here a year minus 1 week, I think, February 21st. So, am I on time?
Oh, you're way over time, Robert.
Am I?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It was well worth it.
It was well, it was perfect, Robert.
This is what I've been dealing with this week. What am I willing to forget and leave behind me? And moving forward. So I appreciate you. I love you. And let's appreciate each other because that's what we're here to do. Blessings.